Welcome to the Wizards of Amazon podcast, where we cover all things private label. My name is Carlos Alvarez, and I'll be your host for the show. Today, we have a very amazing person on the show who does some pretty magical things with products and packaging. Zach, what's up?
Hey, Carlos. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to be here, especially amidst all the chaos that's going on. I think it's a great time to just take a step back and kind of share some knowledge with your audience.
Yeah, so everybody has some perspective as to when this is recorded. We're at March 25th, and there's still shelter in place orders going out. So we're not even in the thick of it yet, according to the news, right? Like the worst is still coming.
Yeah, I mean, days back to back with 10,000 plus new cases and the death rate going up. It's definitely, it seems like we're just starting to hit the big ramp, which is unfortunate. So I hope everyone listening, whenever this does air, is staying safe and healthy and doing their part to distance themselves from others so that we can stop the spread of what's going on.
Absolutely. I think I've asked before, but where are you out of right now?
We're in Austin, Texas. That's
Awesome.
our headquarter office. And then we also have another office in Dongguan, China, which is the manufacturing arm of our business. That's where they're located. And that's in the
Definitely.
southern part.
Definitely. I'm in Miami, Florida. And since you said corporate office, Gembah, can you give a brief rundown? Did I pronounce that right, first of all?
Yeah, Gembah is correct.
Gembah. Can you give a brief rundown of what Gembah does? I know you're not a newbie to podcast. People probably listening to this have probably heard you somewhere else say this, but for those that have been living under a rock, what's Gembah about? Why'd you get it started, and how does it help Amazon sellers or any seller?
Sure, yeah. So Gembah is a product innovation platform. We help businesses, e-commerce sellers, retail brands, Amazon sellers create and manufacture products. We have a team of designers and engineers that have worked at places like Under Armour and Weber Grills and on projects like Tickle Me Elmo to help you with the product creation side of things. So really helping you get your ideas or iterations on products that you want, brought to life. And also, we can talk about in a little bit, more engineering friendly for packaging and distribution so you can limit your costs on that side. And then we have a team in China that is our manufacturing arm that helps with the supply chain side of things. So vetting factories, we have a network of factories in 6 different countries, over 500 factories in 6 different countries, highly vetted by us, working with, companies like Walmart and Target and all these other big brands and big retailers. And really overall what we're trying to do is help our customers create awesome products that you and I want to buy, or manage their supply chain to help cut their costs at the end of the day.
Okay, so I've heard a lot of good things from people that have worked with you. The name that actually jumps to mind quickest is speaking at, obviously, social distancing, doing it virtually at the meetup this Saturday. Eric Howard, I believe you worked with Eric, right?
Yeah, we're still working with Eric. Actually, we're developing a product for him that I'm really excited about. It's for one of his brands, and I'm not sure how much I can divulge because
No,
everything
no,
that we do
I
is
don't even know. I
confidential.
don't
But
even know the specifics. So I'd say let's keep
yeah,
it.
but he came to us. He's done a couple of YouTube videos with us on to kind of document the process of how it works. But yeah, he's been awesome to work with. Really excited. I think hopefully we can get that product out to launch here pretty soon. So yeah, I'm really excited about what we got going on with Eric.
So I think I know the answer to this, but what's your answer to this? Selling a Me Too product is the way to go on Amazon, like true or false?
So um, it's a funny question. So I think from our perspective, it's mostly false. We believe that to differentiate yourself in the market, you need to have a product that is different than what's already out there. So not less focused on private label or white labeling a product, but making iterations on those products, especially in the Amazon space. I think that's the best way to get ahead. A lot of people kind of hear product development or product creation and they get a little scared by what it could cost or what the process could be. But if you talk to the big players in the game, like the Kevin Kings of the world, he's preaching this stuff. He's saying, look, the products that I've done hit the biggest home runs are the ones that I've developed myself and haven't done a Me Too product on. And so I think there's definitely data behind that can show that you can do that. On top of which, the competition out there for white label is just getting much more intense, right? 40% of factories or 40% of products are now Chinese factories, right? So you're competing against them who don't need a middleman. but I think that there is some room for white label to still exist, right? Like if you can look at the data, you can look at, you know, opportunities out there. Something that we can also help with is kind of help you vet opportunities from the data based on like Helium 10 or brand analytics, or, you know, the Amazon and Google Trends data, all that kind of stuff that we can analyze to help you come up with, hey, where is the next best opportunity, especially in a time like this where, you know, you kind of can see it from both angles. The first angle being, hey, look, like, you know, if you're an outdoor brand, or if you're a brand that's in the travel space, maybe you're taking a hit. What other ancillary products could you come up with that are complementary, like home workout equipment that still could fit into your catalog right now to help you diversify, right? Like those are getting high volumes of search data on Amazon right now. Conversely, it might be a buying opportunity for you if you in the travel or party space, right? So party supplies, not many people are throwing parties right now, but if that means if not many people are buying them, maybe the pricing from the factories is going down, which means that you have an opportunity to buy. It's kind of, I kind of relay this to the stock market, right? There's indicators that tell you one way or another what the data and what the trends are. It's up to you to be able to decipher and understand what that data is telling you, to make a data-driven and informed decision on what your next product opportunity can be. But, you know, to answer your question originally, yeah, I think generally speaking, white label is coming to a much more sophisticated and much more rigorous process, to where you can't just go on Alibaba, take a product and then put it online and expect to make millions of dollars. I think the best way to do that is to differentiate, so you can make something that's better than that's already out there.
Yeah, and I think even if, in my opinion, to add to that, if I've noticed that even if you get a white, say just a white label, whatever product you find on Alibaba, AliExpress, 1688, nice pictures they already have done and everything on them, and you bring that over, you're going to wind up hemorrhaging so much more money in PPC
Right.
to try to stand out from the competition, that it would have actually been a more economical play to re-engineer it and differentiate, if you will, from the
Right.
beginning. So
Right.
I agree 100%. What would you say is not differentiating?
um, Not differentiating would be, to
Uh,
me,
an example is, I see some people that have a product and they're like, it's red. I'm going to add, my competitor has a red one. I'm going to add a blue one. Like,
yeah, to me that's like the lowest hanging fruit in differentiation you can get to, right? Like if you're changing the packaging to be your branding, if you're changing the color, that to me is not exactly a differentiating, something that you might be able to get a quick win on, but it's not going to be a long-term solution or viable solution for you. That's because the IP isn't protected, right? The person who has position number one, if they see that, hey, someone wants blue, they might have, you know, a better relationship with the factory, better pricing, better PPC, whatever it is. They can just go to their factory and say, hey, I want to make this blue now, and take away your market share, right? And so at the end of the day, it's something that's differentiating to me is something that you could potentially put into a design patent or utility patent, right? That's something that's protectable differentiation.
and to the majority of people that you work with, is that what it ends up being? Do they end up whining? Do you end up getting a design patent? Is that intentional in your process when you approach a product?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a 50-50 mix. It depends on what the business case is for that specific customer. We have a network of IP attorneys, one that you're probably really familiar with, Rich Goldstein, who
Yeah.
are in our network, that we recommend our customers to if it gets down to that process. And Rich is great, by the way, for
Oh,
anyone
Rich is
listening.
amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing person, and an amazing practitioner.
yeah, he wrote the book on patents, I believe, from the patent office in the U.S. So he's awesome. But anyway, I think it's definitely a business decision, and the great thing about it is when you're developing a product and you come up with that collateral, which is what helps you get the patent. So the CAD drawings, the bill of materials, everything that goes into it. There's a nice progression of, after that is done, between you getting into production and starting and going through the sampling process and finally getting that product out, and you being able to file the patent at that time, that you can pretty much line it up to where you can file that design patent and then hit the market with the product almost at the same time. So it coincides from a timeline perspective and a process perspective really nicely.
Out of curiosity, is there a stage during this process that you recommend somebody maybe consult with an attorney, or consult with Rich on, is this heading down the right, I don't know, road, in the right direction
Yep.
towards securing a design patent?
Yeah, I think it all depends on what patent route you want to go, right? And so I think there's two sides of the coin here. One is, are you trying to circumvent someone else's patent, which I would recommend you get in touch with an attorney immediately. And then one is, are you trying to protect your own IP and you've identified that this is something unique? And so in that case, I think once you've created the final spec, that's when it is actually patentable. You can't really take a sketch and then say, I want to get a design patent. You can do that with the utility patent, but in the case of Amazon, it's really hard to have Amazon kind of lay the hammer down on a utility patent. It's much easier from a design perspective because they can just look at the design patent, look at the product that's out there, and if there's something that looks similar, they can just make the judgment call. Whereas utility, they have to do a much more rigorous process behind it. It's much harder to defend. But I always recommend, if you want to go down the route of patenting, you should do it once your final designs are done, because that's the moment in time where it actually is patentable.
Okay. I want to talk to you about packaging. Maybe I initially was speaking to you about redesigning or re-engineering packaging as a way of differentiation. And you mentioned, this was before we hit record, but you mentioned that perhaps redesigning the product to
Right.
fit some packaging, which really got my, got my juices going. But
Yeah.
I like an example that I've done, and I've sold the brand, but I feel like this would almost fall into the category of, I have a red one and I added a blue one, and that's not like true.
Mm-hmm.
That's not truly creating a defensible product.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this competitor which sold these polymer gel beads and humidification beads, and all they were was these desiccated gel beads expanded with water. But they sold them in one of those big, I want to say gallon tubs, like you'd see protein powder normally
Mm-hmm.
come. So it was considered oversized, and
Mm-hmm.
shipping it because of the size was just $12 or $15
Mm-hmm.
to ship it. Now, what I did was I went to, I think it was a company called standuppouches.net, and they had these like puncture proof stand-up pouches
Mm-hmm.
that I had them make that would fit a flat rate envelope perfectly. So a USPS flat rate envelope perfectly. It was under 50 pounds. So
Right.
I now could, if I needed, put my price to a level that they couldn't while still profiting a lot and go up on my ads. So I know you get a lot more creative than that, but is that
Yeah.
more or less what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of opportunity for you to differentiate in that space, which is, coming up with a creative way to um, engineer your products so they can fit into a smaller package, right? And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. Um, Obviously, just from a high level here, that's just reducing cost of goods sold, right? So you're adding to
Correct.
your bottom line, or you're adding more ability for you to market your product. And people buy with their eyes. So if you can come up with an awesome way, not only, so if you can come up with an awesome packaging in general, a design for the packaging, awesome graphics, that'll set the stage for how your product is marketed on Amazon or retail or e-commerce, whatever it is. But then if you're also able to take your product and then engineer it so that the packaging is smaller, you're going to decrease your shipping costs. And so that, again, that's kind of like the double whammy there. If you can get both of those in one, that's like the home
The
run you
Holy
can hit.
Grail. Yeah.
Right. And so, I can go into an example. We had a customer who did this. He had an outdoor product. I think the circumference of the product, or the distance between the two between the two ends was like 6 feet, and it was something that was used in the summertime. And he came to us and said, my shipping costs are just way too high. I need to figure out a way to make this smaller so I can reduce my costs. Well,
Let,
there's
let,
nothing
let,
we can.
let me
Yeah, go
stop you
ahead.
there so we can get this as we go. So that product, was he the only one selling this product, or did he have competitors that were selling similar products that were probably dealing with the same shipping issues?
Yeah, he definitely has competitive products. This is not a unique product. He's
Sure.
white labeling it, but in the end, the thing that we were able to do with it made it a lot more competitive from a cost perspective. So he's able to sell it better. Um, so he came to us and said, look, my shipping costs are really high because I'm constructing it this way. Help me figure out a way to re-engineer it. So what we did is made it so it attached in 4 distinct places, cutting down the shipping size from 6 feet down to like 2.5 feet, right? And that's a massive change from a shipping cost,
No
right?
doubt. Yeah.
So yeah, like that's like not just cents, we're talking dollars here on the
Yeah.
shipping costs. And so he was able to then market his product better. He's able to increase his sales while also reducing his costs. And so, like I said, from a packaging perspective, that's like step one. Step two is then can you get like an awesome, design to make it stand out amongst the crowd? Those are also things that we can help do. From our perspective, it's hard to tell, what the results were from the design of the package that we did on the e-commerce side of it, but I can tell you that generally speaking, his sales increased as a result of our efforts.
Absolutely. Let me ask a few things there. So I'm envisioning, it's like I have a little fire pit in the backyard. As a matter of fact, it has a hole rusted through it right now because it hasn't been used in so long. But I think I get it. So there's a fire pit, and you have one of those domes that go on top of it. Is that what we're talking about?
Could be.
Okay. Could be. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, but the material then is metal,
Right.
right?
On
So
on the product you're talking about, it's definitely metal.
right,
It
and the
has to be
product.
it has to be flame resistant and all that kind of stuff.
Right. So the product I'm talking about is metal. We'll do it this way. So I have a fire pit and I have a metal dome, and I'm assuming that if I had well, it wouldn't work with fire, but if I had another material type that I did this with, it would be more expensive to work and get new molds and everything for metal than it would for other material types. Is that safe to say?
It actually that really depends, from that particular product you're talking about. It has to be flame resistant, obviously. So there's only certain products that actually are flame resistant. So you couldn't go like a plastic, for example. So I think in the case that you're talking about, re-engineering that to be smaller would be, similar process to I think what I
Well,
just talked about.
then let's look at something different, like a I don't know, a skateboarder's hat. And I'm not a skateboarder, so this might be horrible, but like a hat you might want to wear to protect your head as a
Like a
skateboarder.
helmet.
A helmet, yeah, a
Yeah,
helmet. What am I saying? A hat. Like COVID's
sure.
got me. But this helmet,
Right,
and everyone out there has this metal helmet.
right,
If I wanted to make this helmet smaller to
hmm,
where it fit in a different type of packaging or collapsible or anything like
right.
that, is working with metal over other materials just automatically more expensive on the mold side of things?
So actually on the mold side of things, plastic tends to be the most expensive. And the reason for that is because the unit costs are so low. And so for them to make the money on the molds is where they're going to see it. Metals tend to be cheaper from a molding perspective, but the raw material costs are much higher, right?
Interesting.
So really you have to think about it from that perspective. Like glass and metal are typically cheaper from a mold perspective than plastic. But then when you get to your unit cost, then that's where like, okay, if I'm able to make the investment on the, 10, 15, 20, $50,000 mold for plastic, if I sell X amount of units, when do I make my money back? And then you should also be talking with your factories on how you can get reimbursed for those molds if you want. Like, is there a certain threshold of units sold that they would say, okay, I'm willing to bite the bullet and eat the cost of what those molds are. So all those things are like, again, things that we do on a regular basis and help our customers with to really, again, make the upfront spend on the product innovation side of their business limited, or at least a line of sight to make it so you can get your money back on your investment.
Okay, and just so people can have dollars and cents in their head, this example product that the person might have been making $10 before hand after shipping and everything. How
Mhm.
much more were they making per sale in profit once it was re-engineered?
Yeah, I don't have those figures per se, but like I know that their shipping costs were, decreased by a few bucks. And again, in the dollars per unit perspective, that's a lot.
Yeah,
That's a
so
lot.
potentially almost 50% increase. So that's
Right.
amazing.
So you got to think for every dollar that you're, spending on cost, you're trying to maintain some sort of margin. So your gross margin dollars are increasing significantly as a result of that. But I don't have their P&L and all that stuff, so I don't know
Sure.
exactly what you're looking at. But like again, if you're looking for a 20% margin and you're reducing your cost by $2, right? You multiply that by 5, you're adding $5 or whatever it is, or $10 to whatever your bottom line or gross margin dollars are. So yeah, like those are the types of cost savings where you just get a ton more flexibility on your gross margins, and you can start spending more on PPC, or you can put it into your pocket or spend on starting that new project or whatever it is for your business that makes sense. But especially in a time like right now where everyone's kind of looking at their bottom line and saying like, how can I get creative? How can I do certain things to increase my profit or increase my gross margin? These are the types of conversations that we can help you with and say, hey, look, if you have a product that can be collapsible, or you can re-engineer it to make it into a smaller packaging and bump the lines of the thresholds of what it looks like from a Amazon perspective on shipping costs, we can help you with that.
What's the most common type of client that comes to you? Someone that has a product idea and they want to differentiate, or somebody that has a product and wants to go for 2.0, for lack of a better description?
Yeah, I think it's a good mix of both. I think we have a good amount of customers that are established, sellers or established brands, and they're looking for, hey, how can I either, find in a product opportunity that can diversify my portfolio, or can you help me, find better pricing from my supplier? Because most of them went to either Alibaba or don't have a direct relationship or direct presence in China or Vietnam or India or wherever they're doing production, and we can help them with that. The other half are, hey, I have an awesome product. I need to stay ahead of the curve. I need to create version 2.0 of my product. And so from the product creation side, those are the kind of the two different ways that customers approach us.
Which one do you prefer?
I like them both, honestly. I
You
think,
got to pick one. I can't let you ride the fence here. You can only pick one. Like, say half need to go one way, half the other.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I just love the creative process in general. So for me, I think as long as they're creating something great, it's fun for us.
Do you prefer working on the product and re-engineering that, or the packaging?
Personally, I think the product side is just more fun, right? Like you get to really get some like cool, innovative things that our team, because they've worked at these awesome places like I said, Under Armour and Lippert Grills and stuff like that, where they come up with these awesome ideas, and they've seen those ingenuity, like the game-changing materials and game-changing engineering processes and manufacturing processes that I can't even come up with, right? So they're the ones who've made things in mass manufacturing, knows it works, where to push the limits and boundaries on the product creation side, but also keep it with the end goal of creating something that's in a price range and price target, right? So that's that fine balance that I could never do, but they can all do.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that we both know Rich. I assume you know Rich prior San Francisco, when we were at Seller Growth Summit.
Yeah.
His presentation, and don't spill too much of it because I want to bring him on the podcast because it was genius, where he actually uses part of the patent process of utility patents as a product sourcing generator,
Yeah.
product sourcing
Yeah.
idea generator.
Right.
Where do you ever approach it from that way, or somebody comes to you and said, look, I wanted to sell this, I looked in China for it, I found it, but I realized this person has a patent. What specifically are they protecting, and what can I do different to get in this space, but still get my own patent and stay on the right side of the law?
Yeah. So part of our process in general is to do some sort of patent search to make sure that there's no infringement potential there, and if there is, then we go to someone like Rich or whatever to get his thoughts on what is protected and what's not. In the case of it being utility, I mean, that's much more stringent to circumvent, right? There's obviously something in the process of, or the engineering of how it's built, of like what do we need to do to get around it. In the case of a design patent, it's just what does it look like? So there's things that we can change to make it look different. So that's really how we approach the process. And I think again, that's just standard operating procedures.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot to chew on right there. What else would you add? Oh, how about this? What am I not asking that I should ask, just out of my ignorance, about re-engineering a product, and what I should maybe think about because I have products, and after all this craziness passes by, I've already spoke to my business partners, and they're like, yeah, let's talk with Zack. Like what should we be prepared for?
Yeah, I think in general, what we do is to try and find, bring the method towards the madness of product innovation, right? So, if you go at it alone, it can be scary, it can be cumbersome, it can be frustrating, and that's because if you go down the route of innovating on a product or creating a new product, like where do you start, right? How does that conversation even start? So I have a great idea, great. Now what do you do? How do you know the right people to work with? And so, some general guidelines, it depends on what you're trying to make, but we can help you with, putting that team together and assembling what you need to actually get a product done, and people have done it before. But even, before you go down that creation are you looking at the data to make sure that you're making an informed decision on what your next product can be, right? There's tons of tools, there's tons of data out there that can help you identify the trends in the market and find out where you can really penetrate and gain market share. And so I think if you have those two things before you even go down the product innovation or product creation, you know, path, then you'll be setting yourself apart from most of the people who go at it without those, you know, so you kind of have a leg up. And then once you get there, I think it's just having a clear vision on what you want the product to do and how you want it to differentiate from what's out there. That's going to help you limit the time you spend in the creation process. And then again, once you get to the supply chain side of things, having a good factory partner that you can share the vision with, that you trust, that you can have those conversations about how do I recoup my initial investment. Those are all the things that, you know, from a 5,000-foot view that we can help with and that we urge our customers to really keep in mind as they go down that journey.
Okay, and something you mentioned about the relationship with the factory. So that means the owner of the brand, you're actually going to connect them with the factory, and it's so they're going to have communication. They're going to be able to build that relationship. It's not just through you.
Yeah, it can be for sure. I mean, most people come to us with that. They don't want to have the communication with the factory, or they want to have like the boss relationship, but they want to utilize us as their supply chain team, right? And so because we have a team overseas that, you know, like I said, is in 6 different countries, we have the ability to help bridge that culture and communication gap. So you get a full level of transparency and boots on the ground feel that's really advocating and working on your behalf. And so a lot of people say like, well, isn't that what a sourcing agent does? It's actually not. A sourcing agent is in business for themselves.
Right.
Gembah only wins when our customer wins. So if you guys are placing purchase orders, that's when we start to see the benefit, right? And we start to help you. We can start putting our team in place. We can start putting that quality control in place. We can start, you know, making sure that you are prioritized for orders, especially in times like this where China's on the rebound and getting bombarded with orders for, you know, things like respirators and masks and gloves and stuff like that. Like we have customers who are in that space that are getting prioritization because we're talking with the factories not only in times of good, but also in times of peril, right? So they had a challenging time a month ago. We didn't stop communication. We didn't stop talking to them. We didn't stop any of that stuff. We continued to build the relationship, which is why they start prioritizing our orders. And I can only stress that importance enough that, you know, if you aren't actively involved or actively communicating with your factory, you should be, because again, they're a huge part of your business. They're probably the second most important part of your business outside of your customers, right? Your customers give you the feedback. Your factories make the product. You should be treating them the exact same, because it reaps benefits that you wouldn't even know to just stay in touch with your factory and build an awesome relationship with them.
Zach, that was amazing. I think that's a lot to digest right there, and we'll keep it there. I have no doubt that you're going to be a frequent guest. Hopefully, if I can get your time on the show.
Absolutely.
Also, I'm not using the cruise word, but in another universe, when that cranks back up after COVID, I definitely look forward to having you as a guest speaker in Online Seller Cruise. Anytime you're in Miami, Florida, I'd love to have you present at our meetup group.
Absolutely.
How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah. So, you know, first we have a website, gembah.com, gembah.com. There's a form there. You can fill in your information where you say where you heard about us. You can say you heard about us on this podcast. You know, if you let me, I'm happy to throw a discount to your viewership. Absolutely. If they come in. So yeah, if you type in, you know, what do you want? What do you want? Wizard. If you type in Wizards, we'll throw you a discount. And then, yeah, I think otherwise you can email info@gembah.com, info@gembah.com, and we'll have someone on our team get back to you and start this journey with you, because it's a really exciting one for sure.
Absolutely. Zach, you're amazing. Thank you so much for the code and for taking the time out to be on the podcast in this crazy time. Be good, stay safe, and I look forward to chatting with you soon.
Absolutely. Stay safe, and to all your listeners, stay safe as well. Thank you.
Liked what you heard and want to stay connected? Join our Facebook group or find me anywhere on social media @Wizards of Amazon, or text the word Amazon to 69922.